Today, I'm going to talk about some of the most insane serial killers in history. First up is the Zodiac Killer. This guy took lives for one reason: fame. You could even call him an early version of a content creator, since he constantly sent letters to the police and media containing details only the killer would know. He even included coded messages as a way to challenge the police, basically saying, "If you can solve this, you'll know who I am." Zodiac's first known crime happened in December 1968, when he killed two people on Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California. In the following year, he committed more murders and regularly mocked the authorities. His targets were often young couples in isolated areas, and he always planned his crimes to attract as much media attention as possible. At the time, the police confirmed 5 separate cases, but according to the letters Zodiac sent, he claimed to have killed 37 victims. No one knows if that's true or if he was just bragging. But after hundreds of suspects and decades of investigation, his identity remains a mystery. The Killer Clown. His real name was John Wayne Gacy, also known by his stage name, the Joker. He lived off his wife's family after marrying the daughter of a KFC franchise owner and later managed one of the stores. His side job? Being a clown magician performing tricks for little boys. In 1968, he was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison, but got out after only a year and a half for good behavior. Gacy moved to Chicago to start over, built a construction company, remarried, and even got involved in local politics. But for some reason, he decided to perform as a clown, using that as a cover to lure boys. According to his testimony, his first victim was a homeless boy he accidentally killed after failing to seduce him. From 1972 to 1978, Gacy lured at least 33 young men into his home and murdered them. Most were buried in his basement. When it filled up, he dumped the rest elsewhere. His depravity showed in how he kept souvenirs from his victims and carefully documented his crimes in a diary. To him, human life was just a game. If he felt merciful, he'd let you go. If not, you were done for. The nightmare ended when police searched his house and found human remains buried beneath it. In 1990, Gacy was sentenced to death by electric chair. Ted Bundy. This guy was charming, good-looking, smooth talker, and very convincing. If Tinder existed back then, he'd have been at the top of the food chain. That charisma made it easy for him to gain people's trust, and that's why his victims were mostly young women. Between 1974 and 1978, he committed more than 30 murders across several U.S. states. Because of his friendly and respectable appearance, no one ever suspected him. Bundy often pretended to be injured or posed as a government officer to approach victims, then attacked them. After killing, he would have intercourse with the corpses. He even kept the severed heads of at least 12 victims as trophies. One day, after an outdoor attack witnessed by many people, the police created a composite sketch and got a name: Ted. Her girlfriend saw the sketch on TV and thought, "Wait, that looks like my boyfriend, and I did find a bunch of women's underwear and knives in his car. Either he's a pervert or he's a killer." She reported him to the police, but there wasn't enough evidence at the time. Later, in Colorado, Bundy got pulled over but refused to stop, which led to his arrest. Inside his car, police found ropes, handcuffs, and masks, enough to make him a prime suspect. In his final trial in Florida, Bundy represented himself. He had studied law, but wasn't very good at it. He lost and received 3 death sentences. Jeffrey Dahmer, the cannibal. He had a habit of keeping and eating parts of his victims. His childhood wasn't peaceful. His parents constantly fought and later divorced. After that, Dahmer grew up isolated and emotionally detached. Even as a child, he liked dissecting animals and collecting their bones. His first victim was a man named Steven, whom he met at a rock concert. Dahmer invited him home, but when Steven wanted to leave, Dahmer killed him. He couldn't stand the thought of being abandoned. Afterwards, he dismembered the body, kept certain parts as souvenirs, and ate others, even using some for sexual acts. He also drilled holes in victims' skulls, trying to turn them into mind-controlled zombies. He murdered 15 people, mostly young men of color and immigrants, groups the police didn't pay much attention to back then. One victim, a young Laotian boy, escaped and ran to the police, but Dahmer convinced them it was just his drunk boyfriend, and they returned the boy to him. In 1991, Dahmer was finally caught and sentenced to life in prison, but another inmate beat him to death shortly after. Jack the Ripper. This case took place in 1888 in Whitechapel, London. Jack the Ripper only had 5 known victims, all prostitutes, but each had their throat cut with surgical precision. Because anatomy was a privilege of the educated elite, many believed the killer was a wealthy, intelligent man, possibly a doctor. Some even thought he was a vampire or a vengeful spirit. Jack likely lured victims by offering to pay for their services, then killed them once they were alone. With rumors spreading among citizens and newspapers sensationalizing the story, panic spread throughout London. Despite many suspects and theories, Jack the Ripper's identity remains unknown to this day. Charles Manson. He was the leader of a cult called the Manson family in the late 1960s. Manson preached a twisted philosophy about a coming race war, helter-skelter, and ordered his followers to murder celebrities to blame black communities. In August 1969, under Manson's orders, his followers, mostly young women, murdered actress Sharon Tate, who was pregnant, along with 4 others at her Los Angeles home. The next night, they killed the LaBianca couple, leaving messages written in blood like "Death to Pigs," referring to the police. Manson was later arrested and sentenced to death, which was reduced to life imprisonment. The Butcher of Plainfield. His real name was Edward Theodore Gein, or Ed Gein. He grew up on a small farm in Wisconsin with an abusive father and a fanatically religious mother who taught him that the world was evil and that all women were prostitutes. After his mother died in 1945, Gein's mental state collapsed. Unlike Homelander, instead of drinking milk, he tried to create a female skin suit resembling his mother. When police investigated the disappearance of several women in 1957, they discovered horrifying items in his house, furniture and clothing made from human body parts. Some of them belonged to 2 women he had murdered himself. Gein was declared legally insane and spent the rest of his life in a mental institution. His crimes later inspired movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. Between 1984 and 1985, Ramirez committed a string of murders across California. He broke into homes at night, assaulted victims, and performed satanic rituals before killing them, often leaving satanic symbols at the crime scenes. His goal wasn't just to kill, it was to torture and terrorize. His manhunt became one of the largest in California's history, with over 200 detectives on the case. In August 1985, he was recognized and beaten by residents in East Los Angeles before police arrived. By then, he had committed 13 murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. Even in court, he showed no remorse, once raising his hand to reveal a satanic pentagram tattoo. Ramirez was sentenced to death, but died in prison before his execution. And that's the end of today's video. What do you think about these cases? Did I miss any details? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Mr. Insight. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. See you next time.